Oh, I knew
Hey,
that.
brother
Alright.
buddy.
So,
Yeah, brother, buddy.
okay, so you think that Destiny can beat Warhammer?
Oh wait, I thought we were having a different conversation on if there's causing the warp and stuff.
All right,
Okay, we
Ghost.
can talk about both.
So the problem here would simply
All
be
right,
that the
one
power
second. I'm
scaling
gonna.
was just
Hey,
weird.
hey, calm down.
Like, yeah,
I'd like to
I
talk
am
with
calm.
Ghost here and see what he has to say for himself.
Okay, go for it, Ghost.
All right.
All right. So the question I have is, if space does not exist inside the warp, how do ships enter in and out?
So you do know that ships enter Viva using they basically create a portal of material space to travel through the warp. Yes.
Okay. So let's take it to the next step. How does Drago exist in the warp?
So Draco, he's a demon lord, correct?
No. He's a Grey Knight that's stuck inside the warp.
He's able to use warp power.
That is irrelevant. Does he have a space bubble around him? Because that's not in the lore.
Being able to use the warp power should be able to use to move around. He's a
How?
psychonaut.
How does he physically exist in the warp?
There is no physical in the warp.
So how has he been able to appear in the physical realm and then get taken back in?
There is no physical realm.
There's no physical realm?
So when you enter the warp, you're entering a realm of not material laws. You're entering a place that's beyond beyond causality in all forms. I've showed you all the quotes I've had. And
So then how does he exist inside the warp and then he comes back into the material universe? He entered physically and comes out physically. How did the orcs enter there and crash on a planet?
He is cursed, correct?
Yeah, he's pulled in.
Enter the weapon. So he's pulled in by the weapon, taken out, correct? He's
Yeah, he was sucked into it.
So he being a Grey Knight, he has psycho powers, correct? Because he would have to go through the
Yeah, all Grey Knights have psycho powers.
of expelling a demon out of him, correct?
Say that one more time. I'm going to turn you up real quick. 1 second.
He has to expel a demon out of him, correct?
Out of him? I'm not aware of
Yeah.
that.
So there's a ritual with the Grey Knights where they are possessed by a demon, and if the demon takes over them, well, they're killed. But if it does not take over them, they become immune to being possessed again.
Okay.
Now,
I'm not sure where you're going with this.
Now, him being a psyker, he's not moving in a physical sense. He's moving in a mental sense.
So then what happened to his physical body?
It still exists. It does not, when you enter the warp, it does not destroy you. It does not annihilate you.
So what happened to his physical body? How come he goes into the warp physically and exits physically?
Okay.
I'd also like to know how the orcs went into the Eye of Terror and crash landed on a planet.
The orcs are in a different case, man. You understand their warp powers, correct?
Oh yeah, but I don't see that in the lore. It doesn't say that they just create these space-time bubbles around themselves so that way they can exist in the warp. I think what you've done is you've created a concept and now you're trying to defend it, and it's not through the lore.
To actually allow themselves to travel through the warp.
It doesn't say that.
It's an innate ability for them.
I think you have this predetermined idea of what the warp is, and then now you're just trying to implement ways of trying to see how it could possibly fit.
There is multiple quotes backing this up, even in the new lore.
Okay. I'd like to see how Drago exists physically in the warp, and yet you are saying he doesn't.
I never said he doesn't. I said space itself does not exist.
How does he fit in there?
How does he fit in there?
How does he fit in there? How does he bleed?
He bleeds. It's
So it's not a physical realm. There's no space,
there's no
but a
space. There's no
physical
space.
man exists
There's
in
no-
there and fights.
A physical man that's tight that has warp powers. You take
That's
a
irrelevant.
you take a regular human in there, and there's been descriptions of regular humans going into the warp and not being able to even understand it.
That is not even an argument for what you're saying.
It is not.
People fly into the Eye of Terror and fight. There's a reason why Chaos Space Marines go into the Eye of Terror and they come out mutated.
Wait. Chaos Space Marines. They're influenced by chaos itself.
Yeah, they're mutated.
They're influenced by the power of chaos, which
And
will give them the ability to move around without the real space bubble.
no,
Yes.
it doesn't work that way. They have a physical body that gets
It
mutated.
completely works that way.
They have a physical body that gets mutated. That's how you have like the
They're being
obliterators.
enhanced by the powers of chaos.
No, they get enhanced physically.
Yes, they're being enhanced by the power of chaos.
All right,
Because
so
they worship chaos.
for the space argument, I'm going to say you don't have one because you haven't provided anything to back up what you're saying. You're just kind of throwing out these like phrases of, oh, because they've been touched by the warp, therefore they can move freely through the warp without space and time.
Quotes? I got quotes. I got quotes and
So-
quotes and quotes.
Yeah, give me a quote. I'd like one that specifically addresses this. Specifically something that's not outdated. None of these 6th edition codexes and stuff.
Wait. Why is it retconned? Has it been retconned officially? Do you have?
You
proof
tell
of
me.
it being retconned? Do you have proof of this right here being retconned?
Is there a new codex?
Does the new codex contradict this?
You tell me.
Well, the one I have doesn't.
Go for it, man. Let's see what you got. As far as I'm concerned, a new codex replaces the old one, and they always have new lore, or they update shit, or they change it.
Give me 1 minute here. Oh shit. Posting this from my picture of it. Posting in VC. Yeah, fuck. Where? There we go.
Damn.
Okay, I'm not seeing how this backs up your argument.
Okay, my entire argument was that the warp has no cause or effect. It has no space or time. This right here backs it up.
That does not.
It does.
Quote.
The rational laws of time and space have no meaning.
That
That's
means
what it
they
says.
conceptually mean.
No. The rational
Yes,
laws.
yes.
It's saying that it doesn't stick to the normal rational laws that we understand. It warps it. It doesn't say the laws don't exist. It says the rational laws have no meaning. In other words, you can't go in there and a normal clock won't follow the normal laws of time. It doesn't say they don't exist. So that doesn't back up your argument. Would you like to add to that?
Give me 1 minute. Fuck, I left my book at home.
My condolences.
Shit. I can see. I don't have the information at the moment to back me up.
That's fine. My only goal was just that when it came to the warp.
But I actually have a question for you.
Mhm.
What does paracausal mean to you? What does paracausal actually mean to you?
It would have to. I guess it depends on what universe you want to go by, because it does change. It seems from Destiny, but essentially, it's just that you have a causal effect, and the effect cannot be before the cause.
Okay, so within Destiny lore.
Yo, Ghost, mind if I talk about Destiny now?
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
so now, I mainly want to talk to you about Destiny. I'm not worried about Warhammer. Okay, just keeping that clear. So, okay, so how strong do you believe a Guardian is?
I think it varies.
Okay, how strong do you think the Guardian is, which should be the strongest out of the Guardians currently in canon?
Are we talking physical strength, or what do you mean?
Okay, so here's how scaling works in Destiny, right? The light is kind of like Ki from Dragon Ball, where like it's a predeterministic value for how strong you are, and your hack's potency should scale to your attack potency and your durability, right? Same with your speed.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so in Destiny, you have the Guardian, which, what if I told you that the Guardian could be able to potentially destroy a multiversal threat to be able to destroy infinite dimensions?
If he had the potential, I mean, if he's just channeling light through him,
Okay,
I could see it possible.
Okay, so what do you know about Panoptes?
Of who?
Panoptes?
Not much. Go ahead and tell me.
Okay, so Panoptes. Okay, actually, getting back to the probably the most important thing. You've heard of the Demiurge, right, in Destiny?
It sounds familiar, but I'm going to say no.
Okay, so every race in Destiny has a particular Demiurge, right? Like, for example, the Demiurge of the Guardian is the gun, the Demiurge of the Vex is the thought, the Demiurge of the Fallen is survival because it depends on their ether supply, right?
Okay.
Actually, I'll even go drop a scan for the Demiurge, and then I'll even go grab, like, the lore tab for the Demiurge, too, so...
Let me ask this: where are you going with all of this?
You'll see in a second. So, basically, I'm just trying to show you why like Atheon and like Panoptes should theoretically be equal powers. So, you see the Demiurge right here, right?
Where did you put the scan?
It's in politics and debate.
Okay, let me see it.
Okay, so. this is a thing you normally hear of when you hear about the Guardians being able to, like, alter reality and essentially, like, bend laws to their whims, right?
Yeah, okay, I see.
Yeah, so basically, the demiurge in philosophy is essentially this conceptual construct, right? Like this embodiment. You've heard of, like, the demiurge before, right? In philosophy?
No, go ahead.
Okay, so the demiurge is essentially this conceptual aspect, and that in philosophy, it's essentially known as this quote-unquote trickster, right? But it's something that has, like, this conceptual existence, and basically, Panoptes is basically, like, Panoptes and Atheon are essentially the demiurges of thought, okay? They all share one, core hive mind, right? Like, you've heard how the Vex works, how, like, the Vex are connected to a lower network. Each lower network is then connected to a higher network, and then those higher networks are then connected to basically, like, the top of the top.
Yeah.
Panoptes and Atheon should theoretically be the top of the top in this case, okay?
Okay.
And then basically, like, the Infinite Forest, there's a few different statements for it, right? There's one statement of the Infinite Forest having over trillions of universes, and that this should matter as it actually is a multiverse because, Panoptes created the Infinite Forest. It has a conceptual existence, so any universe in the Infinite Forest should be as real as our universe, right? It has a conceptual existence. Okay, so there's over trillions of these. Osiris literally states it verbatim, right? However, there's another statement, actually two other statements where it talks about, like, the like difference between 0 and 1 or 1 and 2 being infinite, right? Okay, so this would be where you get to the multiversal plus or infinite multiversal areas, right? The Panoptes should literally scale to this area because he was the one who created the forest, right? The power to create takes more energy than, say, the power to destroy.
Alright.
Okay, so now we can then go even higher. So you've heard of Hilbert space, probably, right?
Say again?
You've heard of Hilbert space, right?
No, I have not.
Okay, so Hilbert space is basically the most complex form of, like, infinite dimensional, or in the debate community, high hyperversal, right? Basically, high hyperversal is what you call infinite dimensional, right? Why this is important is because you have the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th, 11th, 12th dimensions, and so on, right? That's all finite dimensional. However, Hilbert space takes that, but essentially mathematically takes it to infinity, right? So therefore it should be infinite dimensional. The lower Vex, like say Brachian, potentially fucking what's the word? I can't remember. The Undying Mind, Korea Blade Transform, those characters can create, infinite dimensional constructs, right? You've probably heard a statement or two about the Pyramidion being infinite in size, or, like, infinite in dimension.
Alright, my only goal, though, is, like, what are you laying the bedrock for?
Okay, so basically this is just saying that the Guardian can scale the Panoptes, because the Guardian should scale to Saint 14. Saint 14 can very clearly defeat Osiris in battle, and Osiris tanked attacks on Panoptes.
So are you saying that Guardians can just keep scaling?
Theoretically, the Guardians could just keep getting infinitely stronger over time, as Destiny lore would present. Although that's more to do with Bungie's aggressive cosmology, and also, like, aggressive power scaling shtick, instead of just the Guardian getting, like, infinitely more powerful. Because what it is that you grow stronger with your own light, not just the fact that the Traveler gave you a finite amount, right?
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, that should literally be impossible because Guardians are doing things that's, like, beyond inaccessible gaps in strength, right?
Yeah, they kind of are.
Yeah, so, you know what I'm talking about, right? Whenever I talk about, like, Panoptes not being able to, like, erase your existence from the forest.
Is it because you're existing on multiple planes, or what do you mean?
No, okay, so this is to do with dimensionality, right?
Alright.
Your light sort of has this dimensional protection, right? Like, for example, a Guardian with a 4th dimensional power would have a 4th dimensional durability and a 4th dimensional attack potency, right?
Yeah.
Not necessarily 4th dimensional speed, because there is a separate meta for speed, okay? You've heard about the speed meta, right? How you have lower speeds that then go to light speeds, and then they go faster than light.
Okay.
Okay, so there is a speed meta where you have something called infinite speed. Then you have something called inaccessible speed, then immeasurable speed, right? I'll go over that later, but anyway, the point is here is that the Guardian should very clearly scale with Saint 14. Because, and you've played Season of Dawn, right? When you saved Saint 14?
I might have. I honestly probably didn't pay attention.
Okay, so...
I would say just keep going.
So the Martyr Mind essentially absorbs Saint 14's light, right? That
Okay.
Saint 14 should be is the same 14 that told Osiris that, like, you died against me in battle. Actually, let me go get the statement from Saint 14. So, Devil's Ruin. Let me go get a video on my phone. No.
So where's this going? Are you saying that
Basically, the Guardian should scale to Osiris in Saint 14, which should be like Vanguard tier, right? In the tower.
okay, but I'm saying it sounds like you're kind of just clarifying that Guardians should be a heck of a lot more powerful than I gave them credit
I
for.
heard in your video that you said the Guardians were superhuman and like they can move faster than normal humans. But like I just wanted to like see where you put the Guardian scaling wise, right? I just want to see where you put them at. Not trying to start your shit.
Okay, I'll give you my reasoning behind it. So when I was looking at them, I kind of just figured that they were probably advanced, like let's say human life forms, and then obviously that they were created from light and shit.
Yeah.
So I kind of figured that these would probably be like perfect level humans, and so that's why I put them at about maybe scout level.
Yeah,
and then I figured
don't
maybe
like
that
it,
when
right?
the light would infuse them, that they would just simply amplify that. But if we're talking like they should be scaling to this level, then they should just be like walking gods in 40K at that point.
Okay, so there is a problem I would then have, right, at this point, right? So the problem is different fictional verses might use different systems, right? Like, for example, there's something called Outerversal, which is like beyond dimensionality, right? Here, let me go get this statement. Fuck it, I'll just...
Yeah, because I've also heard some of these arguments before where someone was saying that... was it like Sanguinius would be like a galaxy level destroyer or something?
Well, like, okay, so here's the thing. Characters in Warhammer 40K could have, like, say, multi-solar to, like, multi-galaxy, you know, say, attack potency and durability, but they could have something called, like, Outerversal hacks, right? Hacks, you know, unique powers. So, you've heard of this thing called Platonic Concepts, right?
No, go ahead.
Okay, so Platonic archetypal concepts were created by Plato. And Plato then hinged these Platonic concepts off of something called the theory of forms, right?
All right.
The reason why this would be a consistent constant is because you would have the conditionals for the theory of forms, right? Like, for example, you have formless beings, and then you have a formless realm, right? That's like beyond the concept of space and time. So, Destiny does not have anything revolving something called Platonic concepts, right? Let me go get the statement for, like, theory of forms so you can read it. Okay, so
is what you're getting to is that they're just multiversal or like...
okay, so the Guardian should be high hyperversal, not outerversal, right? But anyway, the point is here is that different fictional verses will have different systems of scaling, right? Like, for example, DC, right, will have something called Platonic concepts, or like you'll go through literally time itself and it's called light speed, right? But say different verses will have characters, say, going at speeds of infinity or whatever, right? My problem here is that you can't scale, like, say, an average Guardian to, say, some average Warhammer character, right? You have to put the Guardian, or, say, the Warhammer character, on this dimensional tiering system. And then whoever ends up higher on the system should, therefore, scale higher based on the system, right?
Okay.
I don't have a problem with you saying that this Guardian should clearly have traits synonymous with, say, something on par of, say, a Warhammer character, but Warhammer has a different system of scaling than, say, Destiny, so you won't be able to apply that. Instead, what you could say is that, oh, hey, both these characters, right, could, say, blow up galaxies, blow up solar systems, blow up universes, whatever, right? That's how you can arrive at the conclusion that they're relative. So,
wouldn't it be possible that the physics on these different realms are also different overall?
Okay, so in Destiny, this is where the light and the darkness come into play, right? So, paracausality, I should probably move on. Okay, alright, by the way, you agree that the Guardian can at least be multiversal to, like, high hyperversal, right?
I mean, it seems logical, yeah.
Okay, so...
Very rare instances, yeah.
Well, okay, so actually, I can give you the consistency later, but I want to go over the light now. So, paracausality in Destiny is essentially where you combine logic and science, but with magic, right? that breaks causal relations or physics.
Yeah.
That would be something called a type 4A causality, right? There's 5 types of A causality, right? So,
Okay.
type 1 would be where you would essentially break paradoxes, right? Like if you're in a paradoxical time space, because you're a type 1 A causal being, you could therefore just leave, like, the time paradox without being affected by it.
Okay.
Type 2 would essentially where there'd only be yourself, right?
All right.
Actually, here. I'll even grab the page in A causality so we can, go over it in depth real quick. I'll just grab it off my phone because it'll be quicker, so let me go and find it. Here. Causality. Man, this phone of mine's slow. Give me a second.
I got you.
It's fine. Yeah, I already got it. I guess so. Okay, so I'll even drop this right here. So, let the link work. Okay, so you see this page called A causality?
I'm not seeing where you posted it.
It's a
Politics
link over
and
in
debate.
politics and debate. So.
Oh yeah, let me see. I'm clicking on it.
Okay, so here, okay, you're on the page, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, anyway, here's our types of A causality, right? You have type 1, which is essentially time paradox. I already went over that with you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then you have type 2, which basically means that you don't exist in the past, present, or future, right? A good example of this would be, Saint 14. He has his own timeline because he's a paracausal being, but he's type 4, not type 2, although that can be a good example of type 2, right? But basically, whenever you don't exist in the past or the future, that means fate doesn't actually affect you, okay? You can essentially choose your own fate, right? However, you're still bound by a degree of causality. Type 3 would be where you would have difficulties of killing people, right? A type 3 acausal being would be where there's infinite versions of yourself in time, and that if you were to destroy, say, Saint 14, right? We'll just use Saint 14 example. Let's say you destroyed Saint 14, right? Because he's a type 3 acausal being, another Saint 14 from another point in reality would then just take the place of that Saint 14 and do the same thing as he did before, right?
Okay.
Now, a type 4 acausal being, which is what paracausality and destiny is, right? So, type 4 would be where, you have this irregular system of causal relations, right? A different system of causality you may have seen in canon lore. Mm-hmm. Okay, so basically, causality manipulation and fate manipulation, precognition, right, don't affect you, right? Causality manipulation just means to affect causal relations or, cause and effect, right?
Yeah.
You've heard of Giorno Giovanna from JoJo, right?
No.
Okay, so Giorno Giovanna from JoJo, he has this stand called Gold Experience Requiem, and basically he does the opposite from this guy named Diavolo, where he removes the effect but leaves the cause. However, because where he takes away the cause but leaves the effect, basically you don't know what you did previously. However, the effect of the cause is still in place. Giorno has an opposite type of causality manipulation, right? Basically, it's where you reset the actions to 0. Where you take away the effect of the cause and essentially mitigate the cause to 0, so therefore 0 action was performed. Right?
Okay.
Something like that wouldn't work on a paracausal being because they would match a criterion as a type 4 acausal character. Right? Now, type 5, which is what Oryx's true form, right, is. I'm not going to say that physical form Oryx is, as that's literally just some physical avatar of his true self along with the echoes, obviously. But this is where you'd have causal transcendence, where if you're type 5 acausal, you'd essentially transcend, normal boundaries of cause and effect existing outside of any form of causal relations, right?
Mm-hmm.
Basically, good examples of this would be the true form Worm Gods, most specifically Akka, right? A good example of this would also be true form Riven of 1,000 Voices, and also true form Oryx, right? Because they're completely beyond causal, let's say, laws of cause and effect. Right, so paracausal beings are essentially godlike beings, right? The Vex can't really use the light or the darkness. However, they are still ascendant by hive terms, because Crota, because of Savathun, created the Vex whenever he tried creating his own rift, so to essentially create a throne world, right? That's why Korya was a thing in the canon lore.
Okay.
Okay, so there would be examples of ascendant beings. They wouldn't be acausal beings. Any character with the light should theoretically be a Type 4 acausal being. And same with the darkness, as the darkness is also paracausal in nature. They should also be Type 4 causal, right? So, now that we have the causal boundaries in place, I want to talk about the existence stuff, right? Okay,
right.
So you were talking about ontology and basically metaphysics, right? What's your...
Yeah, the ontological weapons which attack your very being.
Okay, so what's your definition of ontology?
It's just basically the state of being.
Not necessarily. So what ontology is, it's basically where it's the first axiomatic principles of space, time, identity, the works, right? Substance.
Mm-hmm.
That would be the very axiomatic fundaments of those things, right?
Sure.
In Destiny, you have the 11 axioms, or like the 11 concepts, right? The difference between your existence and your concept is that your concept is your idea, right? Your idea should transcend your mind, body, and soul, which is your existence. The reason why I want to bring this up is because you said you should be able to erase a ghost from existence, but the ghost actually shares that barrier that the Guardian has, right? Which is that white bar you got, right? That's your conceptual barrier, right? Remember, the Guardian has a demiurge, so the conceptual. So, basically, you shouldn't be able to erase the ghost from existence because you'd have to bypass the quote-unquote conceptual barriers that the Guardian has, right?
Okay.
Because, one, ghosts are ontological in nature, and two, they're paracausal beings as they were created by the Traveler, right? And
so let me ask you this then. What would be the correct order in which it would go?
Okay, so first we have to go by this system of causal relations, and then also we'd have to go by the potency of abilities, right? Because there's two different potencies, right? You have the dimensional tiering of the hexes, which should follow, right? Basic dimensional tiering, like, planetary, universal, high hyperversal, outerversal, right? Hacks will always follow that same order, okay? However, we then have to look at the other system, right? Where you can affect the physical self, the astral/spiritual self, being able to erase from existence, being able to erase your concept, and then being able to erase your narrative, okay? I'm fine with saying that like characters from Warhammer could erase from existence, or that the Guardian should erase from existence, because they're literally using the void itself, like a conceptual void, so they should be able to erase your very concept, right? That's kind of a given. So, but basically, right, you can't really erase the ghost from existence. I've already talked about why that's the case. But also,
wait, then what were you saying about like the warp then?
Okay, so I already told you I'm not really worried about the warp, right? I'm not worried about
Warhammer.
Warhammer.
The 40k universe, like wiping
yeah,
people.
so I was talking about platonic concepts and that they'd exist. Just an example that different verses have like different scaling systems. That's all.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So.
Okay, so let's say that you have an ontological weapon and it hits a ghost. Then exactly what happens?
Okay, so that would depend on the potency. Is the Guardian that the ghost has? Is it a fourth dimensional Guardian or is it a fifth dimensional Guardian? Right. Or are you seeing that the ontological or the conceptual?
Cade as an example.
Okay, so let's say they're universal and that they scale to a Crucible Guardian who is also universal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Assuming they have the appropriate amount of layers and that they have conceptual attacks, they should be able to erase the ghost from existence because they have the necessary potency and the scaling to do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I don't mind granting that. However, you agree that there are characters from Warhammer that's beyond the concept of space and time, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's beyond.
At least with hacks and abilities, not necessarily their attack potency and durability, right?
I guess it would just depend on how you would define that, really. Because I mean, like, let's say if you take a Chaos God,
okay, so
they can manipulate space and time. I don't know if that would be beyond it, though.
Okay, so space and time, when you manipulate space and time, that could literally mean anything, right? You can be manipulating third dimensional, fourth dimensional, fifth dimensional space, right?
Yeah, I mean, it can be pretty broad.
However, every dimension, including infinite dimensions, that's also subject to the law of physics a bit to a different degree, right? However, when you break the concept of physics in its totality, you should be quote unquote out-of-versal, right? Now, I'm not gonna name any names or whatever, since I'm not exactly an expert on Warhammer. But let's say you have an out-of-versal character. The Guardians wouldn't be able to harm that character because they're not exactly out-of-versal themselves. Literally, the best way you could argue the Guardian being out-of-versal is maybe that they can affect true form Oryx, but like that's a physical true form Oryx, and you couldn't hurt Oryx. You can only really sabotage the ritual of Akka. So, anyway, I think that covers like existence, concepts, and then scaling, right? Now, should I move on to the speed?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so in Destiny, you read the lore tabs for like say the Void and for physics, right?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay.
I was touching on all the little subjects. I will say I didn't go this in depth.
It's fine. The problem is that in Destiny, you don't really have like a non-interactive lore. So you could have these characters that could theoretically destroy this concept of space and time, but you won't know it unless like your friend Jimmy told you to go on Ishtar Collective at Bungie.net, right? It's cool. It's cool. So anyway, in Destiny, there's about 3 or 4 different speed metas you can argue, right?
All right.
One, you can argue that Guardians should be faster than light because they can consistently dodge Vex lasers. Lasers in Destiny is basically synonymous with light, so Guardians should be able to move faster than light, and it's consistent because Guardians can also aim dodge to potentially dodging the Sleeper Simulate, which fires his ion heavy laser, right?
Wait a minute, now I gotta ask really quick. Is it like them dodging the laser itself, or is it them dodging the activation of the laser where it's pointed?
Okay, so there's 2 different types of dodging we have to get into, right? There's premeditated aim dodging, and then there's dodging, okay? A dodge...
Which one did they do?
Okay,
Which one did they do?
Okay, so for aim dodging, it'd be where you'd be looking at the Vex, and they'd be charging the laser, so you'd premeditatedly move out of the way. That would be an aim dodge, right?
Right, but are they doing that?
Yeah, they can. Consistently, the Guardians scale above Vex and Kanan. Right? This makes sense because average Crucible Guardians can take on like low-level threats like, say, Fallen Captains, Knights, etc., etc. Knights have firing speeds that are relative to that of the Fallen. Guardians have weapons that fire faster than, say, Fallen or, say, Vex weapons. Also, Crucible Guardians are known to be able to, like, basically capitalize on, like, every threat besides, say, strike tier enemies. A good
yes
strike...
Or no question.
What now?
It's a yes or no question. Are they aim dodging or are they dodging?
They're dodging, but you can argue aim dodging if you want to, like, argue a lower speed. I'm saying you can argue any way you can, but either way, it should be somewhere around light speed, right?
So do you see them dodge the thing, or...
Okay.
Like, do you see the laser coming at you?
This would up their durability to, like, ridiculous levels if they're moving at
not
like,
necessarily, because you can have...
Yes, it would.
Okay,
because they're essentially taking the impact of gas at light speed.
Okay,
yeah.
think it, right? A light speed attack is not synonymous with a 4th dimensional attack, okay? You could have a 4th dimensional light speed attack, or some verses where you move at the speed of light. You'd have to be universal to do it. But this would just be a speed feat for the Guardian rather than a durability feat. Now, would this probably be a Hack's resistance feat? Probably, because the Vex have, concepts themselves as they're a part of, the Hive Mind Demiurge, right? So that would account for their speed and resistances. But if you want to argue actual durability, you'd have to talk about the Minotaurs being able to create universal time spaces or whatever, and then them basically, like, not one-shotting Guardians. That would be an example of a durability feat, right? Because you consistently body, like, Minotaurs and they never one-shot you, as in Kanan.
Okay.
That would be an example of durability, right? Attack potency, that's pretty obvious. I hit you, I can do a certain amount of damage, right? Okay, so... Now, for a higher speed meta, you can argue infinite speed, because, there's this thing with the Vex where they can essentially stop time. Actually, a good example would be Osiris when he can, like, stop one of the timelines in the simulation, right? When you move through frozen time, you should theoretically be at 0, right? However, you're still moving through it. That would be an example of an infinite speed. You then have an inaccessible speed, where essentially there's this non-visible answer to you, where you can say move through voids and whatnot, right? That would be what you call an inaccessible speed. A good example of this would be where if there's some realm in Destiny stated to not have time, and then you move that quote-unquote void, and then you should have like an inaccessible speed tier, right? But the most consistent, at least for Destiny, should be an immeasurable speed tier, where you essentially break basically the speed equation, right? Time, basically, right, where you like divide distance divided by time, right, to get the speed.
Okay.
Whenever you're measurable speed, you break that equation entirely, and you can basically scale the speed in a few different ways, right? One, you can scale to that speed by scaling to other characters who have performed feats or have statements on that level. You could walk through time or dimensions without using any abilities to support it, the light being an exception as it's just an amplifier to your base, so it wouldn't count for some hack. And a good example of this would be Warlocks being able to walk through dimensions with a Nova Warp super, base form Warlocks being relative to the super form in speed. The Vex essentially not being bound by time or space, which is why they can teleport through it, like, pretty consistently. Like, for example, you have Vex throughout different timelines, and they basically, like, warp to your timeline, right? Or they walk to your timeline. That would be an example of an immeasurable speed. Another example of immeasurable speed would be where you could argue the Guardian be able to move in the Vault of Glass, because time itself is in flux, right? Time itself isn't a consistent constant. You can argue immeasurable speed off the Vault of Glass, actually. So, the reason why it's the case is that all timelines, like, are all linked to Atheon, right? All of time and space and the Vault of Glass flow into Atheon, right? But you flow away from time and dimensions when you're in the Vault of Glass. So you should have a not measurable speed, otherwise you'd just be going toward Atheon and just having your concept erased. Right?
Okay. So this seems like this would put Guardians, like, way more powerful. Because I don't know of any instances of Space Marines, like, dodging lasers.
Okay, so lasers, you can... a good example of lasers would basically just be, like, attacks from Vex, and then, like, shots from, say, the Fallen, and then maybe some, like, lore talking about, say, Sleeper Simulate firing lasers and whatnot, right? You could literally just find this if you go on Ishtar Collective and just look up lasers. Like, you should find a couple, like, on regarding the Vex. But, like, that's more of a low end. Immeasurable speed would be, like, more consistent, at least for, like, Crucible tier Guardians, right? And, like, lower Vex. And anything that should scale to lower Vex. But,
well, how would this translate then to just simple strength? Let's say that we take these ideas, we're putting them in the 40k universe. Then how would a Guardian, let's say his punches, how would that work against a Space Marine?
Okay, so let's think, right? Can the Space Marine tank conceptual attacks to multiversal to high hyperversal levels?
Probably not.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, so now I'm not really knowledgeable on 40k scaling, so this is more of a conservative perspective, but if the Space Marine is like outer versal, then the Guardian shouldn't be able to affect it entirely. However, if the Space Marine is like, say, below multiversal or below high hyperversal, again, right, we'll leave the scaling to a particular range, and then like the Guardian should be able to like one shot because of power clipping, right? Also, I want to make a quick distinction. There's a distinct difference between striking strength and lifting strength, okay? Because the incentive here, or like the thing we have to take away from the fact is that the Guardian scaling comes from the fact that he has his light. However, the Guardian can go stronger with his light, right? And the Ghost would be tied to the Guardian's light. So
let me ask you this question.
Yeah.
How much would a Guardian weigh?
That's more of an arbitrary value because the light would more or less amp your physical capabilities regardless of your size.
Okay, because I'm just kind of looking at it going, if this guy can move at these speeds, let's say to dodge light.
Okay, so...
Then wouldn't you just take mass and times it by velocity when he's punching you?
Not necessarily, because the light would have sort of, like, break that construct entirely, because... Okay, think about it, right? The Hunter is the smallest, and the Titan is the largest, right?
Okay.
Crucible Guardians scale to each other. that means that Warlocks, Titans, and Hunters are all in the same tier range. So if we went by that, Titans should be able to one-shot Hunters, or should be able to one-shot Warlocks, because, we'll say they're around 220, 250 pounds, 6 foot, right? However, Hunters should be, say, 150, 160, and then maybe 5'10", then Warlocks are obviously are in the in-between mark, right? However, a Hunter can one-shot a Titan with their super or with their normal abilities because it's tied to their ability to use the light. So that should just mitigate any and all reason abilities that should just stem from mass and velocity. The only constant of mass and velocity you could use is if you're trying to speed calc how much faster than light or just how fast a Guardian is. If we just say that any speed tier above light speed is arbitrary. So.
Let me see something.
What I'm getting here is that they're just gods.
No. So what it is that Vanguard tier characters say the Drifter, Zavala.
They're if they're type 4, they're basically just unkillable.
Not necessarily.
In Warhammer 40K. In Warhammer 40K, I'm saying.
Yeah. So.
In Warhammer 40K, they just stomp every single motherfucker.
Well, it depends, right?
It doesn't even depend. There is no one in 40K besides the.
Well, hold on. You have to let me finish, right? It just depends on the skilling system for how Warhammer 40K works and how it handles its hacks and the narrative context,
I would
right?
love to let you finish, but you're already wrong. There's not a single being that can compare to what you're describing.
Okay, right. I could be okay. Listen, right? I could be wrong or right, and I wouldn't truly know unless I read the lore for myself. All I can say is that I'll take a grain of salt from you, and then maybe go read into lore myself, right? But the point is here is that different verses, while having different systems, may have different narrative connotations for how they handle the lore. So I'm just saying it depends on how you handle the narrative context for Warhammer, as whether or not you could say Destiny should beat Warhammer. That's all.
Sure.
Yeah, that's all I'm really arriving at. So,
Cool.
So I should probably start talking about the outer versals now. Okay, so, okay, so here's a few examples of outer versals, right? You've heard of the Gardener and the Winnower, right?
Nope. Speak of.
Okay, so you seen Mesa Sean drop a video talking about how you might potentially.
Absolutely not.
Fuck. Anyway, so okay, so the Gardener and the Winnower would essentially be what you call God, right? The Gardener would essentially be the god of light, and the Winnower would essentially be called this god of darkness, right?
Sure.
They exist and created a realm that's beyond the concepts of space and time entirely.
Amazing.
That would be what you call an outerversal realm, right?
Sure.
Another example of outerversal would be Oryx's sword called the Willbreaker, right? The Willbreaker essentially transcends liminality, but liminality in this case would be the void between spaces, right? It transcends a void, which should be outerversal, okay? The reason why this matters is because the void itself holds all of space and time. Infinite dimensions, finite, whatever, right? It holds all of it. When you go beyond the void, essentially it means you're going beyond existence and non-existence. So you'd essentially arrive at this area called outerversal. Oryx's true form would transcend his sword, because it would transcend his physical self, which would scale to the sword, in virtue of the Guardian scaling the Oryx in the Regicide mission, or at least the weakened Oryx that the Guardian fought, because that wasn't a 100% Oryx, at least in regards to that version of Oryx, right?
Sure.
Because see, Oryx gets his power through sword logic. However, all the Hive is his quote-unquote children, but there's uncountable amounts of infinite children Oryx has. However, his strongest of children would be Halak and Iryu, and then Crota, right? But see, at this point, you've already killed Crota, and before you fight this crippled true form Oryx, you already kill his daughters, right? So in both layers and power, he is massively weakened because of his sword logic connection to all the Hive. Right? So, even a physical crippled Oryx should scale the outer versal, and then his true form, which would just view that as basically fiction, is basically even more crippled but more powerful than that, right? Prime
looking at
orcs.
this versus battle wiki, I just wanted to ask you a question real quick.
Yeah.
What level would the guardians be? Because I'm seeing like tier 9, tier 8, stuff like that.
Okay,
Like, what
so
would a guardian be?
the problem with versus battle wiki is that it generally has at least contradictions with how it applies its system to characters, right? Because here's the thing with versus battle wiki, it has a valid system. However, how it applies its system and execution would more or less be where the error would be, right? But for type 9, you'd be referring to immortalities, right? If you're talking about the 10 immortalities. I can go over immortality real quick with you if you want.
I'm just looking at the scale for the tiers.
Yeah, so if you're looking at the tiers, you should see orcs being anywhere from like complex multiversal or moon level, or you should see Saint 14 being, I don't know, multiversal, right? When like Hilbert space exists in Destiny canon. So here.
Yeah, these tiers are kind of weird. They're just going by like 3C, 3B,
Yeah,
3A.
so those are just like smaller terms, but they're just meant for like terms that the system uses, right? But the problem is, in order to have like a 6th to 11th dimension, you have to have a 5th dimension before that, right? But see, Versus Battle Wiki just recently got rid of the 5th dimension, which would be what you'd call high multiversal, which is bullshit. Because like, in order to have a 6, you gotta have a 5, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It seems
Yeah, so it's kind of bullshit. So, you see like type 9 or type 6 or whatever immortal, right?
yeah.
I'm trying to find it actually right now.
Okay, so,
But go ahead. You can keep
I
going.
have the page right here in the debate chat, so I'll let you read over it with me.
Let me see. All right.
Yeah, so.
Okay, I see it.
Okay, so, there's different types of immortality here, right? Oryx has all of these immortalities except for types 7 and and also let's see, type 4. Okay. Basically, the Guardian
So he's
is
not already dead and he can't reincarnate.
he's not already dead. It's that because of his sword logic and his true death is separated from himself, he will always come back. He's never actually dead. That's why he wouldn't essentially reincarnate or resurrect. He's just always alive because of the law of sword logic.
Okay. Yeah, I got that. That makes sense.
So the Guardian has like the Guardian has 2 types of immortality, right? You have type 8, which is where as long as a particular being, see, the existence of a being could be tied to like a being, object, or concept, right?
Yeah, which would be his ghost in the light.
Like, for example, a Guardian would have a type 8 conceptual reliant immortality, right? Because of light. Oryx would have types 9 and 10, as well as every other immortality except for types 4 and 7. Okay?
You're talking about Destiny orcs, right?
Yes, Oryx. That Oryx.
Okay, good.
The Taken King. That one.
Good.
Okay.
Yolo, you know he's not saying orcs, right?
I know. I'm just making sure.
Yeah,
that was
it's all good.
Fishy,
He's saying oryx.
Yeah, Oryx, the Taken King.
Oryx. I thought he said Oryx. I'm like,
No,
what?
no, Oryx, the Taken King. Like Oryx, that Oryx.
I'm so stupid.
It's all good. Destiny has always had weird names. Actually, some of the inspiration for Destiny scaling actually came from Warhammer and Halo, believe it or not.
Seems like it, yeah.
Also from Star Wars, too, by the way. But anyway, so
I could run.
basically, you want me to run through the types of immortality, or do you just want to read that for yourself?
You can.
I'm reading them right now, but yeah, I was just kind of curious on. I'd like to see your take on these Guardians in 40K.
Okay, so where do you think? Okay, so what would be the cosmology we'd be dealing with? Are we dealing with chaos gods transcending like the space marines? Like what type of cosmology are we dealing with here?
That would be a hard one because if I can even admit, 40K has a lot of contradictory lore.
Okay, so
it's just like they've retconned stuff, they change things, and then it's because there's so many different authors, you have them writing down different shit.
Okay, so okay.
I mean, I can give you the basic concepts of chaos gods, like
Okay, so
they obviously can manipulate space, time, and matter.
okay, so I am aware that there's like 1 or 2 statements of like characters being outerversal in like Warhammer, right? But
Okay.
let's just say we'll set the bar at outerversal to high outerversal, right? We'll just set the bar there for a second, okay? So now the difference between high outerversal and outerversal is that the concept of dimensionality and anything before that would be irrelevant to the outerversal being, right?
Okay.
However, high outerversal is where you take that to a higher level and say that basically this outerversal being would be irrelevant to yourself, or that you just irrelevantly transcend the outerversal being, right? You're outerversal to the outerversal. That'd be high outerversal, right? We'll just say like they're anywhere from outerversal to high outerversal, okay? So, here's what we'd be going over this in this case, right? The strongest in Destiny, we'd be looking at the true form worm gods, the true form dragons. There are actually wish dragons that scale above Riven, because Riven is one of the weakest and one of the youngest wish dragons. So, and then also like the true form trio, this being true form Ziva, Araf, true form Savathun, and true form Oryx. They should all scale relative to each other, as they are literally killing each other and their throne world when they obtain the concept of sword logic from the worm gods on Fundament.
Okay.
So, and then after that, we'd also be looking at the Gardener and the Winnower, which should just view, like, them as fiction. And when you view something as fiction, you could either be infinitely or inaccessibly higher, right, than what you view as fiction. But that wouldn't necessarily mean you'd be outerversal to them, right? Because the word transcend could literally mean any context, right?
Okay.
There's no real inferential context for characters in Destiny being high outerversal, consistently, at least. There may be platonic archetypal concepts, assuming the whole Destiny collapse reveal thing is actually legit. But anyway, here's how we'd have to go over that then. So there are degrees of transcendence, right? I've already went over the speed meta, right? However, you can apply that system and then apply it in the form of cardinals, okay? Okay, so you've heard of cardinality, right?
No, go ahead. Just keep going, man.
Okay, so cardinality would be essentially where you'd have gaps in scaling between different sets of characters. So I'll even drop this. I know it's Wikipedia, but it's the quickest route to really go for cardinality. So sorry about that.
No, it's all good.
Okay, so and keep this in mind, right? Cardinality is definitely important because Destiny uses mathematics, philosophy, science, logic, and reasoning itself, right? And then characters in Destiny can alter those concepts to their whims. Yeah, so basically in cardinality, right, would be a set or a particular measure or this guideline or a number of elements of this guideline, right?
Right.
For example, right, the example it gives here, A equals, 2, 4, 6 will contain 3 elements. So therefore, it have a cardinality of 3, right? Because
Okay.
6 divided by 2 would equal 3, right? So it'd be a cardinality value of 3. However,
Gotcha.
you can then upscale this to infinite sets and inaccessible sets. You cannot go immeasurable sets because there wouldn't be, because one, the word immeasurable just means it cannot be measured, and layers are a finite to inaccessible, but can still be measured by math, right? I'll let you read
Say
over.
that one more time.
Okay, so in math, right, you have infinites and then you have inaccessibles, right? Cardinals, okay?
All right.
These concepts are applied to speed. However, you can't apply the word immeasurable as a concept. Excuse me, the word immeasurable as a cardinal, because one, immeasurable means that's uncountable or immeasurable or unmeasurable, not measurable, etc., right? When
Yeah.
the concept of layers or potency just means something you can measure either as a statistic or a potent degree. We can't apply the word immeasurable, right? However, we can apply...
So what would be the exact difference between immeasurable and infinite?
Okay, so let's take the number 0, okay?
Sure.
When you divide 0 by 2, it's still 0. When you add 1 to 0, that's just 0 plus 1. Or if you take 1 away from 0, that's just 0 minus 1, right?
Mm-hmm.
Degrees of 0, degrees of infinity. Now,
Okay.
you then had something that completely transcends that in its totality that goes beyond infinity. You have inaccessibility, right? Think of a math problem, right? 2 plus 2 equals x. You will never know the answer to that math problem. It's not an answer that would be accessible to your observations, right? Right?
2 equal x, so I mean, you just add the 2's together.
No, okay, the point is right. Okay, the point is right, is that you're not gonna have a viewable answer or an accessible answer, right?
Sure.
Okay, so you then have higher transcendences that could follow this line. Like, for example, you could view this as fiction, or you could view something as like an irrelevant subset, or view something to this degree to yourself, right? Inaccessible has a higher gap between itself and infinite than what infinite does to have to finitency. Immeasurability would be where there's a larger gap between inaccessibility and immeasurability, right? That's a wider gap between infinite to inaccessible and finite to infinite, okay?
Okay.
And then you then have the word irrelevant, which means it does not matter anymore, right?
Yeah.
That would be what we call out-of-versal, okay? Characters in Destiny. Now, I'm still trying to decipher this for myself because Destiny lore, keep this in mind, right? It's all canon and there's generally no contradictions in the lore, right? There's just more or just higher end scaling. So, right now, Destiny is kind of in this weird shtick of, is it high out-of-versal or is it just several degrees in out-of-versal, right? Like, is it just infinitely or is it somewhat inaccessibly in outer? All we can say for Oryx and characters who scale to or above true form Oryx is that they should be uncountably infinite or infinitely into infinitely in the outer-versal. Or you could say he could be inaccessibly in outer-versal, right? But that's still nowhere near the high outer guideline, okay? And remember, the guideline we set here for Warhammer is that it could be anywhere from outer-versal to high outer-versal, right? So from here, we'll then just say, right, we'll say the Space Marine somehow scales to the Guardian Warrior, right? Cool. They're anywhere from, like, universal to high hyperversal. You would then have to have characters who would match this quote-unquote outer-versal, or would go beyond the warp, or it could be somehow 1A, or not 1A, but outer-versal in the warp, right? These tiers would be where Oryx and co. could go up against, right? Right after that, you then go above, which is essentially the creators of Light and Darkness itself, called the Gardener and the Winnower, right? Everything I just mentioned so far for Destiny is fiction to the Gardener and the Winnower. Okay? That would mean it would be infinitely or inaccessibly above True Form Oryx, the True Form Wish Dragons, True Form Warn Gods, etc., characters that scale to those tiers, right? And possibly Emperor Callus, although it's kind of implied that it's mainly like a prime physical Oryx, or at least an Oryx with his Willbreaker, that, like, challenged Callus to a fight but, like, quickly cut down from. So we don't know where Callus is in the scheme of things. We just know that he's somewhere above Avatar to possibly scaling to or above True Form Oryx, right? Right? So everything else to the Gardener Winnower is fiction, right? So then we then have either degrees of infinite or degrees of infinite followed by degrees of inaccessible. Okay. So in this standard, right, we'll say that they should be able to completely bully Warhammer, right? If Warhammer does not have the layers to match Destiny, but if they do, and then it will then come down to one or two things, right? One, do they have the hacks potency relative to that of Destiny? Or two, do they have narrative hacks? Which I'm not sure if the verse does have narrative hacks, but if the verse does have narrative hacks, and then Destiny should be completely wiped off the face of the earth. Right.
Yeah, I'm trying to go through all these different these outerverse levels to see like where they would fit.
Yeah. So.
But some of these terms are very broad.
Yeah. Now I have been like contemplating getting into Warhammer 40k scaling because I'm aware that Warhammer you can scale to outerversal, but I haven't really found the lore other than okay, so some of the lore here would be some called Platonic Concepts, which is just above outerversal, right? Like, Platonic Concepts would be above the layers I listed, but I'm not sure where Platonic Concepts would even go in Warhammer, or which characters could possibly scale Platonic Concepts. It's just, I'm not sure Warhammer is specifically to give you an answer of Destiny does or doesn't. Just that if Destiny matches this criterion, then it should. That's all I'm saying here, right? So, like, do you have any other questions about like Guardian scaling? Like, I can get into like I guess the tower tiers, right?
Yeah, see, it's kind of hard because like I'm trying to use, like, let's say 40K as a base level, and then I'm trying to see how Guardians would scale from that level.
Okay,
and so I know you're giving me the Destiny scaling itself by itself, but I'm trying to conceptualize the two combined.
Yeah, so the problem here is that we can't directly compare the verses, okay? What we have to do is that we have to put both of these verses on this tiering system, right? Like, one verse could be higher on this system than, say, this verse. So if you were to do a hypothetical cross-verse battle, then this verse, because it has a higher end scaling compared to that other verse, it should win overall, right? Because something out of verse can obviously one-shot something that's only, universal 4D, right?
Yeah.
That would be how you can make the comparison, right? And this goes for any verse. Dragon Ball, Naruto, JoJo, I don't know, Fate, if you compare it to, say, Daisuke, right? Anything. Literally anything, right? So, also, I have seen this, I've seen politics, right? I was wondering, are you aware of a system called Hegelian dialectics?
Probably not.
Okay,
that sounds familiar, but I'm going to say no. Okay,
so Hegel's dialect is a system in which you take two parties, right, that can have discourse with each other, right? This case mean in this case, right, I'd be the primary party, right, and then you'd be the other primary party, right? Then we have discourse with each other.
Sure.
Right, so this would be what we'd call a more of a casual debate or more of a casual conversation, right? Because literally any conversation can turn into a debate because it's, because literally just one premise against another premise, then you talk about it, right? That by definition is a debate. So even though we are conversating right now, it is still a debate. So, not trying to sound like a dick though. Just you can go read over it in chat. This is from Stanford. Stanford is one of the most accepted academic sources on philosophy in the U.S. So I'll let you read it for yourself. So.
Damn, you just left.
I see we lost Will too.
Oof.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, so basically, what it's saying here is that dialectics would more or less just be discourse between two or more different parties, right?
Sure.
Hegel's system expands upon that and then creates a set of guidelines you have to follow in this system. Like, for example, I have premise A beats B. You have premise that B beats A. That's the premise, right?
Sure.
Okay, so then after that, we then go down, like, the premises, the proof for the premises, do they match the conclusion, is it sound, is it valid, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, like, as long as I get you to concede that your premise may be wrong, then that by result would be a concession, then I would say win the debate, right? That's why when Ghost said he conceded, you won that debate. Just being clear, so.
I got you.
Yeah, so if anyone ever jumps your shit, or there's like a bunch of people who try to jump your shit for like saying, oh, you lowball or oh, you wank, any of these verses, because see, you're more of a lore guy, right? But like, because you're not knowledgeable on some verses, maybe one or two people might come in here and I'll spur doubt on you, right? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Just simply like have one person, I guess, if a bunch of people come here and spur doubt on you, like have one person debate you and then like get his premise, find the proof for his premises, right? What's the why specifically this premise? And then go over the conversation. If you get him to concede points, then like after that, you should be able to reach his premise and then get him to concede his premise, right? I'm just giving you the shit just in case anyone jumps in the future, right? Because remember, I'm one of the nice people from the debate community, who don't really spur doubt or yell at people for no reason, right?
Yeah, we've had a few of those people that jump in here and Gamza, you fucking trash, you don't know anything, and I had one guy that just kept saying, okay, now kick me, and I'm like, why?
Yeah, so
and he's like, because I've proven my point. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, that wasn't my intention. I was just
So here's the problem. Okay, here's like Ghost's problem, right? He knows a lot about lore, but his execution, at least in a combative discussion or in a debate, is more or less just poor, right? In comparison to say his knowledge on the topic. I'm trying to like beat that into him that he should probably, have a better execution of what knowledge he has.
Wait, who should?
Ghost here.
Ooh.
The one in call, right? No, I've roasted Ghost for far less.
God.
But anyway, if any like
It's all
assholes
good.
like hops in here, just refer to this system or just choose like 1 or 2 people who want to talk to you. Like, I don't know if you downplay say Dragon Ball by accident by saying, oh hey, they can only destroy islands or buildings, right? Just simply say I'm just not aware of the scaling or whatever, right? And just have like a have a calm formal discussion with them, right? They should all be fine.
Yeah.
And just if they end up spurging out on you, like, just make sure to, like, keep control. Don't yell. Don't be a dick, right? Because that's the worst thing you want to be, right? If someone's being a dick and you be a dick back, that just does not solve anything in general, right? It just turns into a shit show.
Viewing is one for winning, so, I mean, it's inevitable.
This is when you turn to YOLO and just give out one-liners.
Basically,
Oh, hell.
I guess.
It is.
I have no
Yeah.
idea, but
It's the thing that I'm known for. I just spew out one-liners all the fucking time.
yeah, so. Anyway, so, is that
No, I
everything?
think it's interesting. Like I said, I've always been interested in topics and stuff like that. And what I would say is, I have no problem with being wrong
Yeah,
or like again, like conceding a point or something. That doesn't bother me. But I've always seen it as, where are you grabbing these concepts from?
yeah,
And I know
like,
sometimes, like when it comes to like these tier systems, it can be a little bit difficult to make sure that everyone's on that same system, because then
Yeah.
they can start disagreeing at certain points, going, well, I'm going to reject that premise, so I don't care about that tier that you're trying to push forward, So that's what it just turns into a
Yeah,
jumbled mess.
so
And
that
this is why
would-
largely I've avoided
Yeah.
kind of stuff like this.
Yeah.
Because the videos are more on the ideal of just simple entertainment. If I started going down in these tier systems, I would have to really simplify it, because I think
Yeah.
people would just lose interest.
because the point is that you do what if videos, right? Debating is not your thing, right? You just like doing what ifs. This seems really cool in theory. Let's talk about it, right? So what if?
In videos, he usually doesn't debate, but in this Discord, he'll destroy you.
Yeah.
Damn.
I mean,
yeah.
I'm willing to do like a separate debate or some debate with him if he wants to, right? Regarding fiction. It's just like I'm making sure not to be an asshole, right? That's really it. But anyway.
Oh, no, that doesn't bother me. I mean,
Yeah.
I wouldn't really call myself a lore guy. My goal is just to take basic concepts and combine them and just say, okay, how would
Yeah.
this fit in here? And it was never really meant to be taken to, I would say, definitely not this level.
Yeah. Like I just want to talk to you about the scaling and inform you a little more of it, right? My
No, I
whole
think
goal
it's very
isn't to
interesting.
say I'm right, you're wrong. It just my whole thing was like, I just want to go talk to you and see how you'd react and maybe converse with you on it, right? See if there's
Yeah,
anything
no, I
we
think
can
it's really
hash out.
interesting.
But let's see. Is
I
there
would say,
anything?
this is what I would say. It's concepts that I find interesting.
Yeah.
It's concepts I'm not exactly sure if my audience would find interesting.
Yeah, because here's the thing, right? A lot of people in general want to know how strong this guy is, right? But the problem is that the debate community, I'm sure you're aware of this, but the fictional debate community may have a bad reputation because some
seems
people
like
are
it, yeah.
or some forums are called toxic, right? I'm sure you've heard that once or twice.
Yeah.
So what it is that you have forums like, say, Comic Vine versus Battle Wiki, maybe the versus community from, say, Reddit, Amino, DeviantArt, whatever, right? They'll come into your server, blah 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 blah, right? That's the kind of thing people have a problem. That's the kind of thing that gives the debate community a bad rep, right?
Yeah.
My whole goal, right, is that I want to go into servers, right? If you're not really knowledgeable on say fiction or whatever, okay, I'll talk to you about something you might be interested in. If I have knowledge about something, I'll contribute to the conversation. This character has this feat, so he should scale to this level, right?
Sure.
That's all I'm really coming from, right? But not a lot of people are like me or Ghost. A lot of people are dicks. Massive dicks, right?
They're just coming here to tell you why you're wrong.
Yeah, so... And I'll be honest, right? I have been screen recording this entire conversation. It's been an hour and 15 minutes now. So I also have a debate channel where I upload this stuff at. And the whole point of what I upload on my debate channel is to, one, be entertaining, and two, teach people how to actually debate fiction, not be dicks. So I'm going to be honest about that right now. So
Yeah, no, I got you on that one.
I
I find this stuff more interesting
Yeah.
because I don't really touch into this as much.
The problem is, not a lot of people know about this stuff, right? Not a lot of people do.
Yeah,
You don't know
I've
about
been
it.
exposed to it a few times, especially with people jumping in on here and throwing stuff at me, and I've seen
Yeah.
a little bit of this side, but I haven't seen a whole lot of it, and I haven't dug into it.
Yeah, so a lot of people just don't really know about Destiny's scaling as a whole, because, one, Destiny is naturally a very complex verse, right?
Yeah.
an extremely complex verse. You have things like, say, axioms. You have things like, say, fundamentals, right? You have words like, say, fundamental existence. You have words like, say, paracausality, right? Things out of the norm you wouldn't normally talk about when talking about fiction. It's like, oh, hey, some Dragon Ball character, right, blew up a planet, so like he should consistently blow up planets, right? It doesn't work like that in Destiny. It has a much more complex terminology, so naturally, right, a lot of people who want to get into Destiny scaling don't really know how to scale it, right? But because they don't know where to start or how much, or because of the amount of lore, not only people are going to know how to scale it, right? So I get you, right? I get you. I was a normie at this stuff first. I've been reading the lore for like a good few years now, which is why I wanted to like help people expand their views regarding Destiny. Like, how much of Destiny do you know about, right? Gameplay wise, not I'm talking about lore, but gameplay wise.
I put myself probably more just casual player.
Okay,
I'm not that in depth into it.
Okay, have you played Destiny 1 or Destiny 2?
Just 2.
Destiny 2.
Okay, so you'd say Callus is a pretty powerful guy, right? Like, he can
Sure.
create nightmare realms and whatnot, right?
Yeah.
Not a lot of people know that you challenge orcs to a fight, and then orcs immediately said no thanks and back down. Right? So basically, not a lot of people are going to know that Callus can annihilate the multiverse. Who would know that normally, right? That's the point. So,
Yeah, I got you.
yeah, so if you want to know more about Destiny scaling, I'm here. I also have a private Destiny Discord if people want to like get into Destiny scaling, but just
Give me
like,
a YouTube channel.
Oh yeah, I do have a main YouTube channel, actually.
I know. You did say that.
You can put it in a voice chat.
Yeah, well, that's more of my side channel, but here, actually.
Your main channel is your side channel. Damn.
No, my main channel is where I upload, how strong is this dude, or how strong is this little character.
Damn.
I do weeb shit, as like
I'm sorry to
entertainment
hear
on that
about that.
channel. So,
Mm-mm-mm.
yeah, let's see. Let me go.
How many girls can Sasuke impregnate in 2.5 seconds?
Oof.
Oh yeah.
Oof, anyway, so, I'll even go
The
link to
answer is
my
all
main
of them.
channel here, so,
Oh yeah.
here's my main channel, right? Basically, this
We
is just...
said
Where would you put
voice
this?
chat, but either way.
It's in the
Put some
debate chat because
context in
we were still
Oh.
having we were still having a discussion, so I thought it was proper to drop in the debate chat. Now for my debate channel, which is where I will be posting it on, you'll see it on the channel called the Land of Weebs because people like skill fiction because they're weebs. So anyway,
Oh yeah, I see it over here.
yeah. So here you'll see fictional debates, maybe. I don't know, some things about philosophy, maybe some things about science, right? It just depends on what I feel like uploading if the conversation is good enough, but you'll see the conversation on the Land of Weebs, and then like on my main YouTube channel, I'll be getting more into Destiny content, but I kind of don't want to do it at the moment because Destiny is a bit of a weird, it's in a bit of a weird spot right now, because like, I'm still trying to decipher how high into Outerversal is Destiny, right? And with all the new leaks that is like released, and if they're true, I'll have to wait till the DLC releases like in the fall or whatever before I could like truly get into how much stronger Destiny's getting.
Isn't
like,
the whole idea of the ghosts needing like paracausal weapons and stuff to destroy them, isn't that a relatively new idea? That they introduced?
No, that's been a thing that's been a thing since the Taken King from Destiny 1, right? Around 2015, 2016, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and stop this screen recording because I don't want to let it go on too long, so